Designing a hero image is one of the most important steps in designing a website because this is the page that people see when they land on that website, and it's going to convert based on how well it is designed. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to design these two examples. So this is the first one. So it has a glass effect and a parallax effect. And then the bottom one here is a plain one, but you're going to notice something very interesting here. The contrast is perfect because you can read what's on this landing page and you can also see what's in the background. Now, this is very, very important in design. So I'm going to show you how to create these two. Now, by the end of this video, these type of designs are going to be ideal for designing any landing pages on your client's website. Now, before we get started, I'd like to remind you that everything you're going to see here can be found in the Divi Mastery course. This is a course, if you're a Divi user, that is a must because it has everything that you need to know about designing websites using Divi. As you know, Divi has moved miles away from how Divi 4 used to work. This is now Divi 5. It has a new interface. It has a lot of hidden features. So I want to save you hours of going on the internet and finding out how Divi works by putting everything all in one course called the Divi Mastery course. It is only $27. Now, this price is going to go up very soon because I'll be adding more lessons. Does that mean that if you pay $27, you have to pay more? No. If you pay $27, you're going to get all the extra lessons absolutely free, no extra charges. So go ahead. The link to that will be in the video description below. Let's get started and let's design this layout. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go in and create a brand new page. So I'm going to open this page in a new tab so we can start from scratch. All right. So with this now, we can give this page a name. So we can just call this hero. And then over here, we're going to go with the Divi builder. Now I'm using Divi 5, by the way. So with this open now, the first thing we need to do is to add our background image. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to come over here, go to background, and then I'm going to click on this third tab right here, like that. Next, we're going to add our background. Now, for my images, I went to unsplash.com. These are royalty-free images. Go ahead and grab your images from there. Or if you have your own images that you've taken yourself, you can use these as well by applying them or by uploading them over here. But in this example, I've already have my image here, so I'm going to go ahead and select it. Next, I'm going to click on upload image. Okay. So as you can see, our image is very, very small. So do we need to go in and add like custom sizes? No, there is one trick and I'll show you how to do that. Now, while you have the section selected, making sure it's the section is selected, head over here to design. Okay. And then you want to go to sizing. The option we need is height. But the way we're going to add our height is for us to have a full section height, our full height. So for that, you're going to need 100 VH like that, and then hit enter. So now you see we have a totally nice full screen and we are pretty much ready to go. So we're not going to go in and work with the contrast yet. Let's go ahead and start building all the elements for our page. So the next thing I'm going to do is to add a row. So I'm going to go with an equal row in here. And in this row, we're going to add some text. So I'm going to add 2 text modules. And then after that, we're going to add a group. Now, why are we adding a group? Because in this design, we have 2 buttons that are side by side. So I need to make sure I have a group so I can control them much better. So let's go ahead now and add our button. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you can see that it's within a group. So I'm going to spend a bit of time now working on my button so I can have it in the design that I want. So I'm going to click here to go into the button settings. Next, I'm going to say book now. I might as well add my text. So this is going to be book now. We're assuming that we're designing a hotel website or a large website. Okay. Next, we're going to come over here to design and then we're going to go into button. So here is where we need to make all our customizations. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And with this selected now, I'm going to start with my button background color. So you can put a custom color here if you want, or you can add colors that are already in your color palette. So for this example, I'm going to add my own color. I'm just going to go with a really dark color here. I'm going to go with this. Okay, so that's going to be my main color. Next, I am going to remove the border because I don't need the border here. So I'm going to set this to 0. Okay, so my text now needs to also change because right now it is that blue. I don't need that blue. So, okay, our text color here, we can go to light, and I think that works pretty much okay. All right, so now that I have that, I would like to add a bit more padding to my button. So in order for us to do that, we're going to come over here to spacing, and I'm going to set this at 10 pixels. Okay, that's going to be applied both to the top and the bottom. And then over here on the left and the right, I'm going to say, let's try 3 rem. Okay, oops, I clicked something here. Okay, there we go. I need to click that. All right, so the size of my button now is pretty much okay. But if you're not happy with that, you can go in, maybe perhaps set this to 2.8 if that's a bit too much for you. Well, I'm happy with that, and I'm going to go with that. Next, I'm going to come back over here to my button. So we can see here we have things like, you know, the background, and we also have the button icon. So on the icon here, I don't want to have this icon. So I just want to have my button as it is. Okay. So I think I'm done with my button design here. The next thing I'm going to do is to duplicate this button here like that. Okay, so the second button now is going to be called more info. So let's go to our contents, text, and then I'm going to say more info. Okay, so now that I have more info on this button here, just to make them a bit different, I need to go in and give it a color. So again, I'm going to go back over here, go to my button background, and then in here, I'm going to change the color. So I want the color just to match what I have here in the image, and I think that will work great. All right, so now that I have that, I'm going to close out of here, and it's time now to add our buttons side by side. So let's click here on the group settings. Next, we're going to come over here to layout, and then you see here we have flex, and our direction here is it's a column. We want this to be row. Okay, so now you can see my buttons are side by side. This is perfect, and I want all this centered. So I'm going to click on that, and now my buttons are all centered. Brilliant. Next, I'm going to now come over here to my text, and I'm going to change this. So let's head over to Lorem 2. Okay, and before I go to Lorem 2, don't forget Divi Mastery course. This course will make you a master in Divi. Okay, so over here now, I'm going to grab a bunch of text. So I'm just going to grab a little bit here like that. And this is going to act as my main like heading text. So I'm going to select my module here, go to content, and then in here, I'm going to replace all this with this text. Okay, great. At this stage, we can center it since we know we're going to center everything. Okay, now we need to go to the top one. Again, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to grab a bunch of text. So let's go with that. Just 3 words will do for this. Next, I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to paste it. And then I'm also going to make sure it's centered. Okay, so at this stage now, we have all the elements that we need, but as you can see, this is all the way there at the top of this page. We don't want that. We want this to be centered. And this is where we can use Flexbox, but this time we're using Flexbox on the actual section. Okay, let's head over here now to our section settings like that. We're going to come over here to design, layout, and as you can see, we have justify content here, and it's all the way to the top. So these are all the controls. We can set it to the center here, and you can see everything is now bang in the center, or you can set it all the way to the bottom like that, and you can see it's right at the bottom there. So it just depends what you want to do. But in this case, we want to have it centered. So Flexbox here is doing a great job for us to center everything. Okay. So the next thing I need to do now is to go into the rows. Okay. In this row, we are going to zero out all the spacing. So you can see here our style here is selected, but I want to go into content elements because everything in here, all the text is all contained in this column. So we're going to go into this column, right? Go into design, layout, and then I'm going to make sure that I have no gaps. I don't want any horizontal gaps. I don't want any vertical gaps. I'm going to hit enter. So now I've gotten rid of all the spacing. You'll see in a moment why this is very, very important. Right. So now that I have this is where we're going to part ways. Those of you that want to go in and adjust this manually by selecting the text, this is where you can go into this module, okay? And then you want to go into your text like that, and then this is where you can set your size. So if you want to go with 5 rem like that, this is where you can start adding your text like that. But I find it very difficult to work like this, because if you enter like 5 rem, 6 rem, then you have extra work to come into this tab and then make sure that the size here is the right size. Perhaps you want to reduce it to, you know, about 3 rem, and then you want to go over here and then reduce it further. You know what? We don't have time for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my framework called SiteKrafter. However, you can achieve the same results. It just means that with SiteKrafter, I can work faster. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select my text module here, go to advanced attributes, and then I'm going to set my class attribute. Okay. Next, I'm going to name it class. So now that I've named it, I'm going to add a custom heading. So with the SiteKrafter framework, I have all the classes all set up for me. It's fluid. They're going to look great on all mobile devices. You don't have to go in and set sizes on each screen size. So this is, I find, the best way to work with this. I'm going to say SK heading. So I'm going to go with heading. Let's try 7. Okay. Now let's see how big it is. 7XL. It's looking great. I can go in and add my color. So I'm going to say gray. So text gray 50. Okay. And what else do I need? I'm going to need to make it bold. So let's go with 800. So font 800, you can see here, boom. Now it's nice and bold, but I think that's a bit too much. Why don't we set this to about, say, 700? Okay. I think that's much better. I'm going to go with 700. So I'm pretty much happy with that. I'm going to close out of here, and then I'm going to go into this one right here. So similar to how we did it before, we're going to come over here to our attributes, class, and then I'm going to give it a class name. And then over here, we are going to set this up as a normal text, but it's custom text. I'm going to go with, let's go with medium. Okay, so we're going to go with medium. And we also want it white. So I'm going to go with 50. So I'm looking for text gray 50. Okay, so let's go back over here and say gray. There we go. Gray 50, and then we're going to make it uppercase. So I'm going to type in upper. So now we have text uppercase, and also let's set this to font 600. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so now it's looking great. So while we're here, it's important for us to go in and also make some adjustments on our spacing. Now, the reason why we zeroed out, remember, we made it all zeros and removed all the spacing, custom spacing. This is because I wanted to go in here and add my own spacing, which is responsive, and it's also based on a spacing scale. All right, so now that we have this selected, we're going to come over here to attributes. We need to add an attribute to this. So we're going to name this class. So for our spacing, we use MT for margin top. So for this one here, I'm going to go with medium. Okay. And then in fact, that's all I need to do. So I'm going to go with medium. And by the way, there's different sizes. We can go with small, we can go with large like that. But like I said, we're going to go with medium like that. Fantastic. So I'm going to close out of here. I'm going to go back into the text here like that. Now, a quicker way is to right click and inspect. So once you know all your shortcuts, you can always come over here to your attributes, as you can see here, and then I am going to just click anywhere and then just go to the end of my classes and then just say MT for margin top. And this time we just need this to be extra small. So you can see there's a slight change in there, but everything here is done in such a way that it's all calculated, and when the screen gets smaller, all the spacing will be fluid. I'll show you in a moment why this is important. I know these are small touches, but they make a big difference. Okay, so now that we have our design here, we're pretty much very, very close to what we need. So I'm going to duplicate it now, okay, because we're going to do 2 types of this design. So now we have a duplicate here on the bottom. So on the bottom here, in fact, let's use the top one. On the top one here, we are going now to make sure our contrast is great, because as you can see, it's very difficult to read our text over the bed here. You know, it's not great, and this will fail our tests. So what we're going to do now is going to come back over here to content, and then we're going to go to background. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to add a background color, and this is going to be black. Okay, next I'm going to come over here to the image, And I am going to come all the way down here to image blend. We're going to set this to multiply. Now you can see everything is gone black, right? So bear with me, because all we need to do is one more thing and pretty much we are good to go. So now we need to come back over here to background color. We click anywhere in here, and then we have the slider to play around with. So as we drag it, you start to see that it's starting to reveal what's in the background. You see that? So you can go to pretty much whatever you want here, so you can go as low as maybe 52 maybe. Or if you want to go a bit aggressive, you can go to, let's say 56. Okay. I prefer this. So our design now at this stage is done. So you may be thinking, is this mobile responsive? Is this, what's happening on text? Mac, I didn't see you go in and make adjustments in this tab or in this little tab. What's happening? Why didn't you go in and make those adjustments? Well, let me show you something. If I now publish this and do a quick preview, you're going to notice now that when I right click and inspect, we're going to simulate now this going through different types of screen sizes. Now watch the text, you see, and the spacing as well. You start to see that our text is getting smaller and the spacing is very consistent. It's getting smaller, and pretty much this is a perfect design. You don't need to stress with, okay, what's the size of the 560 by whatever, there's so many mobile phone sizes. You don't need to stress about that, because this just works. You see, when I start making it bigger, you notice that my text is getting bigger depending on the screen size. This is how you want to design your hero areas, and these areas here are very, very important in design. The next step now is to do a variation of this, and here we're going to do something a bit different. Okay, so let's go back to our hero 5 here, and we're going to scroll down, and this is the one we need to work on. I'm going to select this. Okay, you see I've selected the row. Okay, it's very important. I've selected the row, and then I'm going to come over here to advanced attributes, and then I'm going to add an attribute. Okay, we're going to go to class, and we're going to name my admin label here class. Now we are going to add our attribute value. So the first one I'm going to add is glass. You see, just by adding glass, I have my glass effect. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Next, I need to add a bit of padding around this design. It's very important, because that way our design has some breathing space. So what we need now is our padding class. I'm going to say P, and I'm going to go with let's try medium. No, I don't think medium works, so we're going to go with large. I think large works great. Close out of here. I'm going to save. Now at this stage, you can decide what you want to do. Do you want to just keep it the way it is? Do you want to add a bit of parallax to it? It's pretty much up to you. So let's add parallax to the first one here, and I'll just show you how easy it is. If I select this section settings, I can now go into content, background, and then we're going to come over here to this tab, the background image tab. Okay, this is where we can choose our parallax. Now you're going to notice that if we choose parallax on this one here, the color goes. Okay, it's very important you're aware of that. Okay, so you may not want to add parallax to this one here, because our colors and everything is all set. However, on the bottom one here, it's much easier to add our parallax here. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's a bug. I don't know why the color doesn't show on the parallax. But on this design, I can now go in and say parallax, and you can see here things have changed. The parallax is now working. I know it's not very clear. Perhaps maybe if I add a few elements here, let's add a few sections. Maybe this will give us something to work with. Okay, so I'm going to save. Now let's take a quick look at this by refreshing it. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this now because I don't need it. So when I scroll, yes, the parallax is working, but it's not very profound. So what I'm going to do is I want to do something which is much easier for you to see. So we are going to come back over here. In fact, I didn't save this. That's why. Let's save. And now if I refresh this, let's try and scroll. Okay, you see that the parallax is there? You see that? Pretty cool. But if you want a more aggressive parallax, you select here and then you go into the image, and then you choose CSS. Okay, now this one here will give you a totally different feel to this. So I'm going to select it and refresh it. Now notice what happens. You see that? Totally different layout. Pretty cool. So these designs are ready for the industry. You can design something like this, and this would work perfectly for any of your design projects, either for yourself or even for your clients. So it is a very, very good way of designing your websites. If you haven't purchased Divi, the link to that is in the video description below. I'd really appreciate it if you use my link to purchase Divi 5. And as I mentioned, I also have the Divi course. Go ahead and check it out. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again in the next one. If you want to support me, there's also a buy me a coffee link on Divi University. You can go ahead and do that. The link is right here, diviuniversity.com, and buy Mac a coffee. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.